everybody, welcome back to another episode of Dialing In for the AMPLITUBE 5 software. Today I'm going to take a look at what is one of my favorite amp models from AMPLITUBE 5, and it actually was one of my favorites from AMPLITUBE 4 as well, and that is the Red Pig amp model, which is a model of an old Marshall Major amplifier. This is a kind of a mid-gain amp, but has something very special about it that I really like. So let's dive over to HX and take a look. Just a little word before I get started. This is going to be a free preset that you can go to my website and download. The link will be in the description below. But I also have available on my website what I call the Red Pig Ultimate preset pack, which is going to be this preset with a bunch of added effects and 3 other presets of varying gain levels based around this preset with a lot more bells and whistles to it. So that's available there too, but you can grab this one for free over at the website, and I hope you guys enjoy it and tweak it and use it however you want. So here's how I started. If you remember in the first video I did about the Pink Tonko, I showed how I had a compressor and an EQ at the end of the signal chain. A lot of folks, again, to reiterate, because I get so many questions, why are you putting, compression and EQ after the reverb? And I do this because I think of it, like I said, as a mastering section. This is something I've done on the Line 6 Helix, and I still do. All of my Line 6 Helix presets contain that, and I just like the subtle glue that it provides, much like a mastering engineer would use it. I'm not using it in a heavy-handed way. It's more just to shape the tone after the fact and get some cohesiveness to all the elements of the tone. So that's why I use it there. So let's start there. What I started with is a Black 76, which is a model of the 1176 compressor. I have my EQ81, which is a Neve 1081 EQ, and those two are always on most of my presets, okay? I also added a little bit of room reverb, as I explained before and many times in other videos. When we're recording direct, we can't take advantage of a real microphone in a real room adding some sort of color and ambience. So it's always nice to add a little bit of reverb to it. Now, the nice thing about AMPLITUBE 5 is we have those room mics, and sometimes I will go just with those, and sometimes I'll add a little bit of other reverb. It all depends on what my ears are telling me for the purpose that I'm going to use this preset for. Later in the video, I'm going to show you a snip of the performance video I did for the Ultimate preset, so you can kind of hear this rhythm tone used in a mix, and you can kind of hear how this reverb would sit as such. So let's go back to the 1176. What do I have here? Well, I have the attack set around 9 a.m., released around 12 o'clock, 4:1 compression ratio, and input and output set just so that I get about usually 1 to 2 dB of gain reduction. On the EQ81, again, what I do is I push the input hard to get it to kind of add its own nonlinear distortion characteristics, very subtle, and then I pull the output back to balance the in versus the out, sort of keeping it at unity gain. I pull a little bit of shelf EQ, everything under 330 Hertz, down by 1 dB. I take my 470 Hertz parametric EQ and I pull that down by minus 1.4 dB. And I go up to the 3,300 Hertz range on the shelf EQ and I boost that by 1.4 dB. And I also put a low cut filter, a high pass filter at 100 Hertz. But I'm going to turn that off for now because we want to listen to this before and after, okay? Reverb, I have just a room reverb size of 25, decay is 1148, pre-delay at 50 milliseconds, the color at -5, modulation at 0, high pass filter is just set at 22 as lowest setting, and a mix of 12%. On the cab, I used the standard Red Pig cabinet that loads up with the Red Pig amp. And I swapped out some of the speakers though. What I did is I kept the Brit 80 that comes in it in the top left and bottom right corner, but I swapped out the top right and bottom left for the Brit Green, which is one of my favorite speaker cabs. I just played around with it and I liked the way that was blended together, and especially when I mic'd it the way that I did. The microphones I use are my standard go-tos, my Ribbon 121, which is pulled a little off axis and a little bit back. And then also my 57, which is dead on the cone. And again, a lot of folks say, oh, don't do that, don't do that. It's going to sound bad. But because I'm using it to blend with the Ribbon mic, the 121, which is a dark mic, I want that subtle abrasiveness of the 57 blended in. And you'll notice here I have it on the 45-degree angle setting, whereas the Ribbon 121 I have set just sort of straight on. So that's my setup for my cab. I also chose a different room this time, if you notice. I chose the amp closet. Because I went with a bigger reverb after it, I figured I would go with more of a dead sounding room. I have those room mics spread out, the width about in the middle, and the volume fairly low on that. So we'll take a listen to how all that sounds in just a second. Over to the actual amp model. What I did is I have the input 1 and 2 bridged, setting to input 1. The volume 2 is cranked to 10, volume 1 at 5. Okay, treble at around 5, middle at just under 5, bass around 3, and presence is off. So let's do this. Let's get rid of our reverb for now. We have our mastering chain at the end off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute the room mics. I'm going to mute the SM57. And here is the sound of just the Ribbon 121 mic with the position that I place it in. You can hear very dark, not really usable as such. Now, let's mute that, and we'll bring in just the SM57. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn that up so we can really kind of hear it. Versus the Ribbon mic. Very dark versus the 57. And then I'm going to mute that, and let's take a listen to what the room mics are doing. Probably almost nothing. As you can hear, there's almost no signal there, so they're pretty much almost muted. So I'm going to actually sneak this back up. I think this got set a little bit lower than it should have. I'm going to set this back up around minus 13.6. And that's what you hear when all of those mics are together. Still very dark and woolly sounding. Very dry and in your face. So that's those settings. Now, let's bring in our reverb, and we'll hear what that does. All right, not too bad. Now, this is where I sort of feel the magic comes in. Let's take our compressor and turn it off. Here's our sound without it. Turn it on now. To hear the nice squish it brings into it, obviously it brings the volume up a bit. I'm not worried about matching unity gain on this to when it's bypassed, simply because this is an always on thing for me. So I'm just going to use it to kind of even boost my output up a bit. So it works really nicely. Now, let's turn on the EQ81. Again, without it, it's this. And that's kind of my finished product. So again, if I turn off this mastering section, here's what we have. And that's the finished product. So, as I mentioned, I have a full version of this with 4 presets in total available on my website that'll be kind of right alongside where you can get this free one. And it's going to be this same preset with 3 others of various gain levels, from clean all the way up to lead, with a whole slew of effects built in. And if you want to hear what these sound like in a mix, this preset here being used in this next mix I'm about to play you along with the other presets from the preset pack. So give that a listen and we'll get to hear what this sounds like in a mix. All right, what'd you think? I thought it worked pretty nicely. I was pretty happy with the way it came out, and it's a usable tone. And like I said, this is an amp model I've been really happy with and really liked even since AMPLITUBE 4, but now with the new cab room, I think it's even better with AMPLITUBE 5. So that's what I did with that. Please go grab a free copy of this. The link is below in the description. Use it to your heart's content and tweak it however you feel necessary to have it suit your ideals and what, your tastes and for your purposes, if you're playing live or if you're playing in the studio, whatever works for you. But hopefully it gives you a good starting point to kind of get you going in the right direction. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed that. Go grab yourself a preset. Please like the video, share it with anybody who you think would enjoy it. Also hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell notification to get notified when I put new content out. I will be back very soon with some more content. Thanks so much, guys. Ciao for now.